My name is Sherry Muir-Irwin, and I'm a longtime AWF board member, co-chair with Corrine Smirka of our Professional Development Committee. And it's my pleasure on behalf of our AWF board and our Executive Advisory Council to welcome you all to this very special virtual happy hour, Clarity in the Midst of a Crisis, How to Find Your New Normal. And we are so honored to have Dr. Priscilla Archangel as our speaker this afternoon, as she shares her wisdom and knowledge and recommendations on how to navigate to that new norm. I know you can see all the details, all the impressive details on our website bio, but just to give you the executive summary, Priscilla has a Ph.D. in Human and Organizational Development and is a John Maxwell Team Certified Coach, Speaker, and Teacher. In her impressive 30-plus year career, she has ranged from HR executive roles in corporate America to developing successful leadership teams for her client companies, to delivering inspiring keynote and motivational speeches, and to writing bestsellers. Now, I had the privilege of meeting Priscilla. Oh gosh, I didn't even count. I don't want to count, Priscilla. I don't know, a lot of years ago, a lot of years ago. And I'm so excited to have her as a member of our AWF family, and especially to have her here this afternoon, generously bringing her wisdom and her knowledge to our members, especially during this very trying time. Not only is Priscilla the consummate professional, but she is also one of the most caring, compassionate, and insightful people that I know. And I can't wait to hear her thoughts on how to find our new normal and thrive on the other side. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce Priscilla Archangel.
Great. Thank you so much, Sherry. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the camera applause. I am really, really glad to be with you all today. Some of you I saw yesterday at another meeting. So this is just a kind of a wonderful week of sharing and learning and growing with one another. And that's really what it's all about. We're here to be supportive of one another and to help each other grow. And so I want to talk about clarity in a crisis right now. And it's probably, as I'm looking out the window to my left here, it's probably apropos that at least in southeastern Michigan today, it's cloudy and it's overcast, okay? This is a little bit of what we experience when we are in a fog. And sometimes deep in a fog. I was telling Diane before we started the meeting today that, you know, you wake up this morning and you see, oh, you know, it's cloudy, it's overcast, it's going to be one of those rainy days, even if it's supposed to be, you know, a little bit warmer here. It's one of those rainy days and you just feel like, ugh. So I'm going to use the chat box, and we might do a poll or two while we're together today. But I really want to hear from you all. I really want to interact with you all. And I'm used to being in a room with groups that I talk with. And so I'm learning in my new normal to do things virtually, as I'm sure all of you are too. But I still want to try to be interactive. So I'm going to ask you a chat box question now. What are some characteristics of being in a fog? Just type it on in there.
Okay.
And if you're not sure where your chat box is, if you tap the bottom of your screen, you'll see icons and you'll see a chat icon. If you click on that, your chat box will come up on the right-hand side.
Yeah, thanks. Oh, I love this. It's cold and dreary. You can't concentrate. You're lost. You're scattered. There's a lack of focus. You can't see clearly. Repeatedly, you can't see. You can't see. You don't even know what day it is. It's Third Tuesday today, okay? Or as someone else said, every day is yesterday, today, or tomorrow, okay? You're blind, okay? Those are really, really good examples of what it's like to be in a fog, okay? Here's a couple of things that I'll summarize from even what you said. There's low visibility. Oh, someone added, new ways of doing work and talking with your husband. That was him.
That's a fog.
That's a fog. That's really serious, you know, because you're unsure where you're going. Sometimes you can feel very heavy and you tend to get lost. It's just a very dark feeling. And being in a fog can lead to a feeling of crisis for you. And so that's part of the challenge that we, you know, pretty much all or most of us are going through at some level these days. There's this fog, there's this different thing. And what we're trying to do instead is begin to move through the fog, all right? And moving through the fog, I want to talk to you about an acronym for fog, moving from frustration to optimism and then to gratitude, because that is what I believe brings us clarity. And that's what all of us are pretty much striving for these days. We want to see things clearly, or at least as clearly as we used to see them. So let's talk about frustration for a moment. Frustration typically stems from one big thing that we're feeling right now, which is lack of control, okay? For me, I thought I used to be able to control some things, and I emphasize I thought I did, okay? But now I'm really realizing those things that I don't control, all right? And it can be frustrating. I can't make things happen like I used to. Frustration comes from a lack of perspective. In many situations today, we are down in some of the things that are going on, as opposed to being able to rise further up above it and look at it from 10,000 or 20 or 30,000 feet and have a better and a broader view and perspective of what's going on. But we're kind of feeling down in it. And it doesn't help that we are sitting, you know, many of us pretty much at home, within the confines of a home office or the four walls of our home, and not able to go out as freely as we would want to, and to put ourselves in different situations like we would want to. So I don't know about you, but sometimes I think better when I get a different perspective on a problem, when I can go and view it from different places, and when I can put myself physically in different locations and think about an issue. Whereas right now, I'm kind of confined to the four walls of my home, largely, in terms of how I even think about issues. So that's a challenge. There's also a level of insecurity in the present that we're feeling right now. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy, and it's basically, it's a guide that kind of talks about the things that we need as human beings to feel good about ourselves. And it starts with, you know, we need food and warmth and water and all like that. And then the next one is we need safety and security, all right? Now, many of us take that for granted. Now, we know how to move around in our environment being safe. You know, sometimes it's like, you know, don't take a walk in the dark or something like that. But we're used to those things. But now our feeling of safety and security has been shifted, because there is this invisible illness, shall I say, that we know we're supposed to avoid, but we don't quite know where it is, and what can I do and what can't I do, and what can I touch or what can't I touch. And so it creates a different feeling of insecurity for us. And then that leads to future uncertainty, because we're all looking for, what is this new normal? What is the future going to be like? How will I get my work done? Or will I have a job? Or how will my family be provided for? Or just any number of questions. We don't know what to think about the future. And all of that can lead then to kind of an emotional disconnection, okay? You know, some people deal with it by overindulging in a variety of things to, I'll call it, numb the pain. For me, that would be chocolate-covered almonds. I got up this morning saying, I am not going to eat any chocolate-covered almonds today. Others may have their own food or drink of choice, or their own, you know, binge watching TV shows or things like that. But sometimes it's like we just want to do whatever works for us to try to get away from it. I read an article the other day that even pets are going a little crazy, and their behavior is different because they are not used to their owners being around as much. And so the owners of the pets are encroaching on the pet space. And so pets are experiencing and demonstrating some very, very different behaviors, much less our kids, and it goes on and on. And so we have emotional disconnection, we have unhealthy habits that we latch onto, and then there's some negative behaviors, you know, kind of like the comment of being in this space with a spouse that we aren't used to spending as much wonderful time with as we get to spend right now. It's kind of all of that together. And so there's this frustration that builds up. So part of that fog, though, is moving from frustration to, then I'll go the other way of the slides, to optimism. All right? Optimism is where we make a conscious choice to be more self-aware, okay? So I'm going to ask you in the chat box right now to just share with me, how has your self-awareness increased in the past couple of months, okay? Now, while you're typing that in, self-awareness is like step one of emotional intelligence. Hopefully we've all heard about emotional intelligence, know something about it, you know that it's something we all need to be constantly building and growing and developing in, okay? But self-awareness is really recognizing your feelings and behaviors. So here's one of my stories. Sunday night, Monday morning, I was like feeling a little different. I'll call it, I felt like I was starting to feel symptoms. And by Monday morning, as I'm, you know, pretending to work out, do my stretches and my treadmill and all like that, I was literally, and I hate to admit this because I try to be optimistic, I try to be very positive, I really do try, okay? But I was entertaining this narrative in my mind of, did I catch something? Do I need to quarantine in a different area of my home? My husband is immune compromised. I don't want him to get sick. Do I need to, you know, spend the next 2 weeks in the lower level? And literally, I was thinking about this in my mind, and I was going through the process of planning this. And so a couple hours later, I told my husband about it. It's like, I'm feeling, I'm just feeling kind of oogie. I don't know. And so he thought about it. I can laugh now. He comes back to me and says, I think you're just stressed. And I looked at him and I thought about it. I said, you know, I think you're right. And almost immediately I started feeling better. And oh, by the way, I had even taken some Tylenol cold and flu medicine early Monday morning, just in case, to try to help me. Now, and it didn't do anything. It didn't change at all how I felt. So that made me realize, again, this is self-awareness. I was feeling stressed. I was, you know, adapting to the symptoms that we hear other people talking about. And I was kind of taking all that in, and there was nothing wrong with me physically. I'm fine, all right? It was just a stress symptom, but I had to become more self-aware, okay? So I'm going to look at some of your comments right now on how your self-awareness has increased in the past couple of months. So realizing you need to take a walk at lunch every day. That is huge. It's like getting away from the environment that you're in, the work that is kind of pulling you in, surrounding you, and you're probably hearing that a lot of people are finding that they're working more hours now from home than they did from the office, just because of everything going on. But making it a priority to step away and take a walk and find a new surroundings, that's huge. Thanks for sharing that, Sue. Increased awareness of needing the company of friends and family up close and personal. That's really good, Sherry. So some of you, and I do specifically say you. Some of you are extroverts. You get your energy from people, okay? And so this is extremely hard for extroverts not to be able to physically be around people right now. And, we can do all the Zoom meetings we want to, but there's something about being in the physical presence of people that's huge. I am a slight introvert. So in that context, it's easier for me in general, but even for me, I want to reach out and touch you all. I want to be in a room with you. I'd like to hug my 86-year-old mother, but I dare not because I don't want to give her anything, okay? So I bring her groceries and stand in her hallway and look at her, but I haven't gotten close to her in 2 months. And that hurts me emotionally, okay? More comments here. Recognizing what is really important in my life and not letting the busy of life get in the way of living. That's really, really good. Not getting caught up in all the other things that are going on. I think part of what we're experiencing is learning what we value most in life. Another comment is, it's important for me to help others and give back. Thus, talking on the phone and helping people with their resumes. So Kim, you did a great job of that yesterday in a different group we were in, reaching out and offering to help people in need. And it's not all about, am I going to get paid for everything that I do, but it's where can I make a difference in people's lives. Cheryl appreciates the slowed pace to appreciate connections to family and friends. All right. Again, when we think about what's the most important thing in our lives right now, I used to, this is funny, in my corporate career, I used to get into situations, and we've all been there, and we all have, and we all still do. It's a crisis situation. I called it Rome is burning, and I'm trying to save Rome, okay? And so, there's a crisis situation going on. It's all hands on deck. We're all trying to get things done. And then my mother would call just to talk about what she was cooking for dinner. I'm like, Mom, I'm saving Rome. I'm trying to help save Rome from burning and all like that, okay? So I laugh now in retrospect, but we do get caught up in that. And times like this help us to reflect on what's important, okay? Carla says, getting fresh air and jogging every day, increased need for my faith and worship. That the faith and worship is huge for me. When I feel like I'm getting bogged down in emotion, I need to focus in on my faith and my worship, and that lifts me up, and that's what helps to give me optimism. So it's making a conscious choice for self-awareness, which is part of self-confidence, a sound sense of your self-worth and your capabilities. Things are happening to people's jobs right now. I know some of the people that are typically on this call are in transition between jobs. And sometimes we associate our self-worth with, am I working? Or where am I adding value to someone or some company? But it's really about, first of all, having a good sound sense of what you are capable of doing and what your worth is. And even knowing your strengths and your limitations. Because people will try to stretch us farther than we need to go. That's when, I need to take a break and take a walk and exercise or do whatever I need to do to clear my head, okay? So those are really good comments that you have on how your self-awareness has increased in the past 2 months. The other thing to think about is, would that have happened if we weren't in this situation? Now, I am not wishing a pandemic on us by any means, but it's a little bit of the silver lining and what we're finding in this time and what we're being able to appreciate, okay? I'm going to ask Diane to put up the poll now as I talk a little bit about self-management.
All right, I'll go ahead and launch the poll now.
Great, very good, thank you. And so you see that on the screen, just fill in your answer there. How easy has it been for you to manage your emotions over the past couple of months, okay? Because that's about self-management. First of all, we have to be aware of our emotions, And secondly, we have to manage them effectively. So that means being able to take initiative, to act and seize on opportunities, okay? I will tell you even that in the very first week, and I remember very clearly on Friday the 13th of March, as you know, schools and businesses were starting to shut down, I said, you know, and I do leadership development consulting, so I'm always kind of around here and there. I said, I am going home and locking the door. I need to shut it down, okay? And probably for that first week, it was kind of like, what in the world is going on? I've never experienced a time like this before. But I had to then determine if I was going to take the initiative in my own work, in my own life, and find opportunities and seize them. Because sometimes we can be paralyzed momentarily with the initial shock of what's going on. But the ability to self-manage appropriately means managing those feelings and behaviors, staying motivated in spite of setbacks and obstacles. So it's being able to take initiative, to control our emotions, to have a drive to succeed and to push forward with that. That doesn't mean it's always easy, but it means we push forward nonetheless. So let's look at the results of this poll. Okay, easy wins out with 32%, okay? In terms of how easy has it been for you to manage your emotions. But I'll say, let's see, we have a tie for second place between difficult and neutral. And then for some people, it's very difficult. And so think about this. You're working in a team. It's important as a leader to be cognizant of and sensitive to how other people in your team are handling this time, okay? I might say I'm having a great day and I'm moving through it easily and it's not a problem, but maybe my colleague or my team member is having a difficult time of it, all right, for whatever personal reasons they're having. And we have to be cognizant of that, and we have to be sensitive to that, and even how they are managing the emotional issues, okay? I'm gonna pause and see if there's any other questions, and I'll check the messages here too. Jean is acutely aware of how fortunate she is. Yes. Corinne is trying to keep a routine together. So I like that. That's a wonderful example. One of the things that I said I was going to do kind of at the start of this, and this is all about what's normal to you. All right. I said I'm going to get up every day. I'm going to comb my hair. I'm going to put on my makeup. Yes, I wear makeup every day. That's part of my normal. Doesn't have to be good or bad, but what's your normal? And I'm going to put on, I'll say, decent clothes. So I don't wear my pajamas every day. Okay. I have my workout pants, or my jeggings as they're called. And then, you know, depending upon what else I'm doing, the top half is a little different. Okay. But at least I'm going to put on some decent around the house clothes. That's part of my routine, and I'll make sure that I exercise every morning. So whatever's important to you, keeping that routine together, because it's not really about anybody else seeing me other than maybe my husband. It's about how I feel about myself and what routine helps me. So that's great. Okay, I'm looking, Andrew, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, is so thankful for the opportunity to help others. So those are good comments about the optimism. So in the fog, we're moving from frustration to optimism to gratitude. And gratitude is a foundation for having greater social awareness, okay? And social awareness is understanding what others feel, showing better empathy to others in terms of what they're going through, how they're managing through this. One of the challenges, and we see a lot of the automotive industry planning to go back to work in the next week or two and slowly phasing in. And one of the things that we have to be sensitive to is how our team members, how our employees, what their experiences have been as they've been going through this time. Some have been sick themselves. They've had family members who are sick. They may have lost family members due to this disease or other sicknesses. There have been, and I will tell you, there are probably half a dozen funerals of non-COVID patients that I have not been able to attend during this time because of all the restrictions in place. And one was my sister-in-law in another state. And, you know, we just couldn't be a part of it. And so there's a feeling that goes with that. But still being able to operate in gratitude and show empathy to others, be able to think of ways that we can serve others. You know, how many of us are maybe volunteering our time or giving even more to people in need during this period? Because a lot of nonprofits don't have the resources that they might have, or a lot of people are out of work and aren't able to do the things that they would normally do, okay? So we're able to do those things. So here's a chat question. How has your social awareness increased in the past couple of months? I'll pause and let you write in there. How has your social awareness increased in the past couple of months?
When you chat in your chat box, if you would also look to make sure it's going to everyone. That way everyone will get to see your awesome responses.
Yep. Taylor says her social awareness has improved. Sue says, realizing how many people are food insecure. That is literally huge. Grocery shopping is like one of the most important and stressful things I'm doing these days, quite frankly. And so when I think about people who are, you know, not sure where their meals will be coming from, that's huge. Antonella, having kids in school, I'm concerned about those students without the tools they need to continue their education. Everyone doesn't have internet access. Everyone doesn't have enough laptops for people. Keeping 6-foot distances and still talking with as many people as Kim can, all right? So there are all these, our social awareness, our need for social awareness has really been heightened in the past several months, okay? And with that, we are finding opportunities, and we can find opportunities to drive change, because there are some things that we can control going forward. Finding opportunities to go from crisis to creativity. I love the examples that companies like GM and Ford have given us with pivoting quickly from making automobiles to making face shields and face masks and ventilators and partnering with others on all sorts of equipment. And for those of us in the auto industry, we know how long it takes programs to be developed and programs to come to life. And to turn on a dime and pivot and do those so quickly is huge in our industry. And it makes us realize what's really possible when we all come together and put our resources together. Anita talks about calling friends she hasn't talked to and reaching out to family and friends more. I'm doing the exact same thing. Sherry's increasing donations to charities, thanking those in essential roles. I thank the cashier at the supermarket for being there, for being willing to come to work, things like that. All of that is so important. So moving through the fog is going from frustration to optimism to gratitude. Now, there's one of our challenges these days is all about control. And you may have seen this model from Stephen Covey. There are 3 areas of our lives: those things we can control, those things we can influence, and those things that are concerning to us, but we can neither really control or influence them. And I want to talk about how that impacts us right now, okay? And the first thing is thinking about grief. Some of you have seen the 5 stages of grief. It's a model developed by Kubler-Ross and Kessler. And when we grieve, and a lot of people sometimes associate this simply with the death of a loved one, but you can associate it with any loss of something that is important to you. A stage of denial, no, it's not really happening. Anger that it happened, bargaining on maybe how to get it back, sadness that is kind of part of a resignation that's really happened, until you get to acceptance. And in this uncertain time that we're in, we tend to experience some of these feelings. So I think we have another poll coming up here, Diane.
Yes, we do. Would you like me to launch it?
Would you please?
Absolutely.
Great. So, which stage are you spending the most of your time in over the past week even? Which stage? Ah, I like that. I like that. A majority of people are in the acceptance stage. That's very good. So here's just a you can throw it in the chat or you can just speak up. Did you have to get through any of the other stages before you got to acceptance? In the past 2 months, did you have to spend time in the other stages?
Yeah, I would think, I mean, if I'm just speaking up, Priscilla, I think, yeah, and it comes and goes. You know, I try to be at that level of acceptance and then something happens and I get angry and then something happens that I find out a beloved activity that every year I look forward to is not happening and then I'm sad. So it kind of bounces around, but in general, I try to keep that level. This is where we are. We're going to get through it. It'll get better.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things of grief too. We don't necessarily go through these stages of step 1, 2, 3, 4, and only progress forward. We can circle back around, we can loop back around and experience it differently. Darlene says, sadness for sure, which ebbs and flows. Anita says, Suzanne says, I was never in the denial phase. That's good. I think it hit all of us pretty hard, okay? And Anita said, yes, denial through the anger and sadness first. So, you know, we all have some different ways of dealing with this, but we know we got to get to this acceptance, because only as we get to acceptance can we move forward. And that's where we're going to talk about control, finding a new normal. So what can we control? Now, I don't know about you, and I think I mentioned earlier, I found out how little I can control. You know, sometimes I like to fool myself and think I can control a bit more than I can. And then something happens that slaps me back into reality of how little I can control. But the most that I can control pretty much is how I'm thinking and feeling, my strengths, my capabilities, who I am, my person, my passion, my purpose and passion, the experiences and knowledge that I have, beliefs and values, my thoughts, my feelings, my priorities, my attitudes. It's all about who I am and what I'm thinking and feeling that I can control for the most part. But that is wonderful. That's good, because that can be a lever for us to move forward. But just recognize that there are limits to your control, okay? Now, what can we influence? And this is a huge, huge question. There's a story, I don't know how many of you have heard of the butterfly effect, but the theory of the butterfly effect is that some butterfly here, and I'm in Northville, so I'll just use Northville. There can be a butterfly in Northville that flaps its wings that can set off a ripple effect so that on the other side of the world, there's a tornado. Now, that may sound like a huge leap, but that's the theory of the butterfly effect, that something that happens in one spot will have a ripple effect on a whole host of other situations that will lead to other results in other places. And that's a little bit like influence, okay? We can, as we control our thoughts, our feelings, and even our behaviors, we can have an influence on others. So as you identify the needs around you, that's one way to begin to influence things. So what do you see? Now, if I were to take off my glasses right now, I would see you all very fuzzily, because these are trifocals, all right? I have graduated in life to trifocals, to be able to see clearly both at a distance, my laptop, and reading close up, okay? We all have the ability to see different things with our natural eyesight, and not just based upon what our vision is, but also based upon what is important to us, what we're passionate about, what our purpose is, okay? I might walk by a vehicle with Sue Rocco's. And Sue, because, you know, you're an engineer, you'll hear something about the exhaust of that vehicle that doesn't sound right. And I'll be like, I'll say, you know, what are you talking about? I didn't even hear what you're talking about, okay? Because based upon our interests, we're tuned in to different things. So because of your uniqueness, you are tuned into different things happening around you. So that's, what do you see? What's most concerning to you, okay? And because of what you're tuned into, you can see possibilities that other people can't see, okay? And you can connect solutions, existing solutions to new problems. Some of you may have heard about a doctor and an engineer or someplace, something like that in Ohio, who found a new way of sterilizing masks, okay? Because this sterilization method was used in a different industry, they realized that they could use the same method to sterilize masks for hospitals, okay? And, you know, within a record amount of time, they had pivoted and found a new use for this problem. They use an existing solution for this new problem, okay? And that's what we can begin to do and use our influence on, all right? We do it by making sure we recognize our environment. What are the resources, the networks that we have? Our networks are broader than we may think they are. And so hopefully all of you have used this time to explore your networks and leverage your networks, because I know I've been reaching out to people that I don't normally talk to, just to connect with new and different people, just to understand what's going on, just to see how I can help them, how I can support them. But do that with your environment. You know, make sure you understand the norms and expectations of what's going on around you and are operating certainly within, you know, the appropriate laws and guidelines and requirements. But you can influence so much more than maybe you thought you could. That's very, very important, okay? And you can view the needs that you see around you as opportunities. So how can you use what you can control to influence outcomes? So that's leveraging control into influence to get outcomes. So I'll just pause. Have any of you seen or had the opportunity to use some creative ways of solving problems now that you wouldn't have thought of before, or maybe seen other people do that? I'm going to pause and look for your comments, or just speak up even. Just speak up. Ah, virtual baby showers for a colleague. That's wonderful. I've even done, you know, I mentioned those funerals I wasn't able to attend. I've done virtual funerals. And it's horrible, but it's so wonderful to be able to do that with loved ones. Someone was going to say something?
If somebody wants to respond to Priscilla's question, just remember to unmute yourself, and then we'll be able to hear you.
Pivot to a virtual speakers bureau for work. That's great, Sean. And quite honestly, these are things that we never thought we would do in this way. Because I will tell you before now, I haven't, and Diane and I laughed about this a week or so ago. I haven't done virtual training. I love being face-to-face with people. I love being in the room with them. And I would have just said, no, you can't be effective in virtual training. But whoa, I've done a whole bunch of things like that now. Never knew. Yes, presenting classes online. Karen is relearning to play the organ to play along with her son so he can keep up playing the trombone. All right. So these are kind of the wonderful experiences that we're having, and using what we can control to influence outcomes. So now here's some questions on the concern aspect of finding your new normal. And this is the issues that weigh on your mind and your heart that you know, are kind of outside of that realm of how can I really impact it. But just think about these questions when you're thinking about things that concern you. What can you control regarding the issue? Okay, it's almost a circuitous loop. What can you control about the issue? All right, and how can you address it differently than you did in the past? What can you influence about it, and where's the opportunity that exists, and how can you find ways to accomplish goals? And also, what do you have to let go of regarding each issue? Okay, so a big part of this is having a new perspective on the things that concern you. And sometimes with that new perspective, again, reframing what you can control and what you can influence, you can make some impact, and then you let the rest go. And you move forward, focusing on those things that you can control and that you can influence. And then focus on demonstrating optimism. So, you know, I've heard it described new normal. I've heard it described as what's our abnormal. We all know that the future is going to be different in some significant ways. We don't know what that looks like. We're anxious and excited, and we want to really, really push and figure that out because we want to settle in and we want to, again, kind of take back that level of control, okay? But part of this is letting it evolve too. I have seen in the past 2 months more creativity than I ever would have imagined that we could demonstrate, and even me to a degree, okay, might have demonstrated. And some of it just takes the right time, the right opportunity, the right view, the right vision. It takes me having a conversation with one of you who might see a similar need, and then we get together and we come up with a potential solution. But it's how we put that together, okay? Darlene is learning a new language via Duolingo. Oh, that's cool, all right? So put the concern aspects in the right frame for your new normal. Now, this is a bonus slide, okay? And this is really, really important as you're leading your teams going forward and helping them focus on the new normal too. And some of you may have heard of Daniel Goleman and his work on leadership, and he has 6 leadership styles that he talks about, okay? And as I looked at the styles that he has shared with people, I thought about it in the context of how you use them and manage through a crisis. And so this slide is one that will help you as you're leading your teams, because there are 2 styles that are kind of negative, and then the other styles are much more positive. And we as leaders need to understand when to use each style. So the first one is coercive, and it's a style that demands immediate compliance. So when we all started out in mid-March, it was clearly a do what I tell you, okay? There were clear leadership decisions by our companies to ensure safety, to mitigate risk, and it was go work from home, it was shut this down, it was do this, do that. But it was very coercive and very direct. And if that continues too long, it's a very negative style, but it's necessary when you need immediate compliance. The next one is pace setting, and it's setting a high standard performance of do as I do it now, when you need to quickly develop and implement a plan of action. So kind of immediately after it's all right, we need to shut these things down. Now it's what's our plan of action? How do we go forward even in the short term? And there was a high bar. I mean, that's when you know, the GMs and the Fords and the other companies were able to come up with you know, quick turnaround solutions on how to get things to the medical community that were needed. And it was a high standard of performance, quickly develop and implement a plan of action. But then after that, we need as leaders to make sure we are mobilizing people toward a vision and invite them to come with us. Communicate the vision for addressing the crisis along with our underlying values. And so we're hearing a lot more of, we want our workplace to be safe. We want our employees to be safe. Let's work together and figure out how to do this. And then we move to a more affiliative style, where we, again, go back to creating harmony, building emotional bonds, because people come first. And as leaders, we need to make sure we're engaging with our teams to let them know that we do care about them. Then we can be more democratic, invite consensus, ask them what they think, make sure we have topics that they can weigh in on, they can be empowered to make decisions on, okay? We want them to play a key role in it. And then we coach them, try this, we develop people for the future. So during this time, we're probably all seeing the best leaders rise to the top, and we're seeing people who can perform well really shine during this time. And so we've got to keep coaching and developing them for the future. We've got to reflect on the lessons learned for our team. We've got to make sure we provide developmental assignments for people going forward. So I give this to you as kind of a roadmap for your leadership and how you communicate, because this helps your team get clarity in a crisis. It helps them move out of the fog where, quite frankly, someone's telling them what to do, and none of us quite knows what the future is going to look like, to involving them in the solution and giving them clarity for what things will look like going forward. Okay? So I'm going to pause. Questions? What questions do you have? Or comments? And to speak up, we don't have to even use the chat.
This is Kim. I think one of the concerns that some of the organizations have is actually taking the existing leadership and training them or getting them to think differently in their leadership styles. My question is, how do you think organizations are going to be able to handle that change?
So we have all been thrust, first of all, into change. There are changes that organizations wanted to make that, quite frankly, would be evolving over time, or might transition over time. We are thrust into transformative change overnight, okay? And there's a saying, never waste a good crisis, okay? This is it, all right? So organizations that thought about change and now realize, oh, we've got to make this change really quick, this is the time to capitalize on it, and this is the time to do it, and this is the time for the senior leaders to lead by example. And as they look at different leadership skills that they want their team to exhibit, it's starting to talk about it even more. Let's say they started before, but it's starting to talk about it, starting to point to where it has been exemplified even in the past couple of months. It's starting to reward people who did demonstrate it. It's using the situations that we are faced with now as examples of, here's what it looks like, here's how you do it, okay?
What do you think is going to happen, though, to leaders in the organizations who want to stick to their everyday business and not change?
I'm pausing to try to be politically correct, but the reality is death. And I mean, let's face it, the organizations that don't change now will not survive well, okay? Now, and I'm looking at all of us. Most of us on this call are of a certain age. We've been around, we've seen a lot of stuff, okay? Mm-hmm. You have seen organizations or pockets of organizations or leaders that refused to change and did not fare well, okay? This is where you learn to be agile. If you can't pivot, all of our favorite words now, if you can't pivot, if you can't turn on a dime or whatever, you are going to just fall over and fail in many respects, okay? I just, as you all have, and I think Carla Balos on the call, I've listened to a couple of the CAR briefings, wonderfully, wonderfully informative. And you can just listen to those briefings and know that if organizations don't make adjustments to what we're seeing in the industry, they will not survive, okay? And so all of us, I mean, so this is a simple thing, but if I hadn't learned to do virtual training and learning and presentations, my business would die, okay? Now, again, I call that a simple thing by comparison, but you get the point, all right? I think I heard in one of the recent briefings a comment that, you know, what will this do to ride sharing businesses if people don't want to get into a vehicle, you know, with someone, you know, I don't know you, I don't know where you've been, and, you know, you have different people getting in this vehicle. I'm not getting in this vehicle with you. I want my own car now. I'm going to go and buy my own car. Okay. You know, and that's just one little sample of what will this do to the automotive industry. So in some respects, it's maybe too early to fully guesstimate, but at the same time, we can see certain trends happening. All right. Vacation for airline travel is going to be down for a while. We know that. Okay. I have relatives from coast to coast. I have a niece in Portland, Oregon, who's having a baby in a month. I would like to see her baby. I will have to drive there if I want to see her baby. Okay. But people are going to be doing a lot more driving. What would that do for vehicle sales? I mean, there's all sorts of questions. But anyone who doesn't learn to adapt and adjust and change isn't just not going to make it. Okay. So Jean is saying, go back to the slide, remember who you are, and go through those again. Jean, you tell me when I get to the right slide.
That was 9, slide 9.
Okay.
One back, I think.
Okay.
There you go.
Oh, oops.
What's that?
Nope. All right. Oh, I'm sorry. This one, right?
Yep, perfect.
Jean.
Remember who you are. Yeah. Okay.
Go for it, Jean.
Yes, thank you. I just thought it was a really good slide, and I didn't catch all of what your comments were.
Okay, great. Great. And so part of this is just as things are changing around us, we can't lose sight of where we should be grounded, okay? And what we bring to the party and what we bring to the table and what we can control, okay? People may try to, quite frankly, get you to do some different things in this time. And you need to make sure that you understand where your strengths and abilities and your purpose and your passion are, okay? I know some of you are in transition in between successes, okay? Looking for your next opportunity. And you have to remember what you're good at, who you are, what your purpose is, and what your passion is. And because someone will say, hey, I have this opportunity for you over here. Why don't you do that? And that won't be the best opportunity for you, okay? And you'll be tempted because you'll say, well, jobs are in short supply and I don't know what, and maybe I need to grab this. But I will tell you, you are not going to thrive in an environment that does not leverage your strengths and your purpose and your passion, okay? You may get by for a period of time, but you're not going to thrive, and that's not going to be where you find your joy. And you won't do as good a job at it as somebody else will, quite frankly. Thanks for bringing that up, Jean.
And
Other questions?
Priscilla, we're at about 4 minutes until the ending.
Okay. All right. So let me just leave you with this. If any of you want to talk more about this, just reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk with you. I have a new book coming out, Leader Vantage, 7 Essential Steps to Reaching Your Leadership Peak. And if any of you are interested in being entered into a drawing to receive a complimentary copy of this, just send me your email address afterwards, Priscilla@PriscillaArchangel.com. And I will enter. Yeah.
I did put your email in the chat box, so if anybody wants to, they can just copy and paste it.
Thank you. Thank you. So those are your 3 steps for continuing to gain clarity in the crisis. So I'll pause there. Any other comments, questions?
Thank you, Priscilla. This was just really good. Exactly. I don't know about you ladies, but it was exactly what I needed today. So thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Thank you.
All right.
It was great, Priscilla. Thanks.
Thank you very much. It was great.
Yes, thank you very much.
Great. My pleasure, ladies. My pleasure.
Thank you. Well, before we wrap up then today, and I especially love the acronym, the FOG acronym, Priscilla. You know, I mean, I think we're all frustrated, but to keep the focus on optimism and gratitude and what we can control and what we can influence. I was struggling to remember, what is it, the St. Francis prayer or something about God grant me the serenity to change the things I can, to accept the things I can't, and the wisdom to know the difference, something along that. That's a paraphrase, but it kind of, I think, applies here. But no, thank you so much, Priscilla, on behalf of AWAF and all of the members here who were able to join. So appreciate your taking time and sharing these seeds and thoughts of wisdom and direction to help us find our way through the fog, if you will. And as we wrap up, ladies, and I don't know if we have any gents on the line as well, but I just wanted to say a reminder, keep your eyes and ears open. We have some upcoming virtual happy hours like this one that have some programming that are going to be bringing us all sorts of knowledge and wisdom as well. The next one up is Thursday, the 4th of June. Difficult Conversations, Open Heart, Open Mind, and that's with Diane Morrison, who is our producer here today. Thank you, Diane, for that.
Way to go, Diane.
And one of her partners, Marion Morlock. So we're looking forward to that. And then a few weeks following that, on Thursday, the 25th of June, we're going to have Turning Trauma into Triumph, how to leverage negative experiences and boost your career. And that's with our own Linda Taliaferro. And then a little bit later in the summer, keep your eyes open for Power Presenting for the Virtual Presenter, a very relevant topic. Yeah, it says we're all owning those skills. And that's going to be brought to us by Christina McKenna from Bluestone Executive Communications. So everybody kind of stay tuned for details coming up on being able to participate in those virtual happy hours as well. But again, I thank you all, and especially Priscilla, thank you so much, and Diane for helping produce. And everyone stay safe, stay well, take care, and we'll see you next time.
Great.
All right.
Great. Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
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 So we'll go ahead and stop the recording. Is that correct? Okay.